this was an article we did in the Harvard Business Review about customer analytics. And it's going to be more on the delivery in terms of certain examples we're going to give to some of you guys. This may be things you've already done in the past. For some of you guys, this may be things that you have wondered what it's all about and kind of get more relevant to context in terms of what might help you internally and sell some of these programs. So I asked Lloyd to participate as well. He's got a lot of relevant background. He'll speak to it a bit as well. But it'd be good when we finish the conversation, we can have questions and sidebar conversations or whatnot, specific to what issues you may be having in your own environments. So I wanted to give a little credit to John Lucker and Leandro Yamole. Leandro used to work with Deloitte, and he became a global analytics director at Citi and Davenport. Everybody knows Davenport. They wrote this thing in HBR, and we're kind of repurposing this for this meeting today. So Lloyd, you want to join me and do your presentation, see what big jobs you got?
Sure. Thanks, Omer. Appreciate it. Omer and I wanted to open up today's session with a discussion about the new forces in play today, which I think we all acknowledge are having a pretty profound impact on how data is being used as leverage to compete, to innovate, and to capture value. No doubt that the convergence of so-called big data, I'm sure everybody's really tired of that term, and new channels to engage and deliver value to customers is resulting in a mad scramble for existing companies and, importantly, emerging companies to create new value. You know, it was only 5-10 years ago when the analysis of data and billions of data points was much, much different than it is now. What's different about today than 5 or 10 years ago? I think the two most important factors are that there's been a massive reduction in the costs of data storage. You know, that has clearly contributed to, you know, the so-called preponderance of big data. And secondly, the availability of enormous processing power. And both of those clearly has made big data a lot easier to examine and to analyze. So that's when the next best offer comes into play. So what that has meant for virtually every business, especially credit card issuers and retail banks and loyalty enhancement companies, you know, companies that sort of, that I come from, well, that finally, the realization of many years talking about narrower segmentation and more precisely tailored products and services and using data to drive customer behavior. You know, all those objectives and terms that have been thrown around for so many years about tailoring and customizing and bespoke and so forth. Finally, that time is upon us. So, you know, this is why you should care about it. And collecting and mining data about people's behaviors, their so-called attributes, their purchase behavior or the purchase context where consumers are indeed consuming, their social network behavior, their response behavior, their loyalty behavior, and so on and so forth. All of these factors are finally allowing companies to better predict and to better understand consumer preferences and actions. And it's allowing companies to get much better at marketing efficiency and overall other organizational goals by being able to predict propensity to respond. And by being able to do that a lot better, there's billions of dollars of ineffective spend that now is starting to dissipate and be put to work elsewhere. It's allowing companies to analyze customer complaints in a much more comprehensive way and to understand the root causes of complaints and understand how complaints impact future performance and future loyalty and future engagement of a customer with a company. It really is allowing companies to develop a much more intimate and deeper connection with their customers and I think we'd all acknowledge that prior to now, that engagement has been sporadic. Just think about the product characteristics, such as the Starbucks app on your mobile device. And think about the broader impact that Starbucks is having in your life, just because now they're in your pocket all day long. Clearly that company is having a much deeper relationship with you because they're right there with you all the time. And they obviously, should you choose to, you let them know exactly where you are, when you are, and your other activity on your mobile device as well. Incredible when you start to think about the impact that such things can have on how companies interact with customers. We're not going to get into a discussion on privacy and security today, at least during this presentation. Perhaps that's being dealt with in other sessions during this conference, but clearly that's a whole nother area that we need to worry about and think about. Think about the product characteristics of the Alpine ski app. Probably some of you are skiers like I am. And the Alpine Replay ski app is very, very cool. Those of you not familiar, you turn it on before you head up the lift, and it knows exactly where you are, what mountain you're on, what trail you're on, knows your speed, knows how long you've been in the air, and gives you amazing statistics, and then lets you know how you're doing with other people on the mountain or across the country that are skiing also at the same time. But here's the important thing. Based upon your location and your skill level, you can receive targeted offers, and most importantly, more relevant and timely offers. And that, again, echoes the next best offer about right products and services in the right channel and at the right time. And again, it's been talked about for so long, but now it's finally here. Just as an aside, it's funny. My daughter, who just started her second year of college at Franklin and Marshall in Pennsylvania, so she's in her second year and she's starting to think about what she's going to major in. And she was a bit worried about what my reaction would be when she told me that she's leaning towards sociology. And I said, bingo, bingo. Because coming out of school with a sociology degree today doesn't necessarily mean that you've got solely one path, social work, as was the case for so many years. If I'm a CEO, or if I'm a chief marketing officer, or even if I'm a chief information officer, a CIO, I want sociologists, and I want psychologists, and people who really understand how to read behavior. Why? So that I can put the data to work to capture and mine and analyze and predict, and therefore have a bigger impact on the business. So, MBOs are often designed to inspire, to purchase, and drive loyalty, or both, and probably most importantly, both. And Omer's going to share with you how that works, but first let me tell you why it's so interesting to me. That by offering the right product or service at the right moment, at the right price, in the right channel, there's a ton to be gained for the business and for the customer and for all stakeholders in the ecosystem. First, as I talked about earlier, greatly enhanced marketing efficiency, both from a revenue growth standpoint as well as a cost efficiency standpoint. In the credit card world, I see that there are many folks here from the major banks. The name of the game in the credit card business, how folks compete, certainly based upon risk and credit risk management, but share of wallet, and now even more importantly, share of digital wallet is ever more important. One of the things that I think about now is when you downloaded that Starbucks app and you were asked to sign up one of your credit cards to be charged every time you needed to refill that app, which card did you register? You get more than one shot. You can certainly change the card, but really card companies are getting one shot in the mobile app to be able to say, this is the card that I want to capture that spend. And I'm not sure what card issuers are doing today to ensure that it's their card that's going to get registered rather than their competitor's card. You know, in the physical world, you go to the store and you pull out your wallet and you have all your cards in your wallet and you make a conscious decision about which card to use at the point of sale. In the digital world and on a mobile device, you really get one shot if you're a card issuer to capture that spend. And you know, I have yet to see good strategies put in place by card issuers to make sure that that happens. Enough on that. Again, third, you know, being able to present offers that are timely and relevant, and combining location-based data and spending data is really a fantastic opportunity that some in the space are starting to realize. And then finally, you know, being able to better predict preferences and actions and understanding customer sentiment by combining purchase behavior with social behavior. So Omer is a principal at Deloitte, and he heads up Deloitte's analytics practice. And I'm going to turn it over to Omer now to share with you a little bit more about how to create effective offers.
Thanks, man. Good. Okay. So, you know, to decipher the mystery behind this, it really isn't much. I mean, I have personally seen analytics programs fail primarily because they didn't have the skills or capabilities or whatnot, but A, we didn't define clear objectives on it. Whether it was increasing loyalty, increasing revenue, enhancing cross-sell to existing customers or acquiring new customers, depending on some of the banks sitting here. You know, one of the banks thinks that they are have the 90% of the U.S. household, and they are not interested in acquiring more customers. They feel like they want to cross-sell more products. So if I have a checking or saving account, do I have a mortgage account with them or mortgage relationship with them? So is your MBO specifically very specific towards those areas? Or an example is one of the Tesco, the UK retailer chain, right? I mean, they want to increase loyalty to their regular customers, and they came up with a club card program, right? Similar to what Lloyd was mentioning in terms of using the Starbucks app, right? They're tracking who's buying what and what stores. They're managing the products on the shelves by the different zip codes depending on the customer segmentation of that population on those zip codes. They are trying to come up with a purchase context. So they're trying to capture information and trying to understand, for example, if a household is expecting a child, not only are they trying to make them targeted offers about baby wipes and food formula, but they realized that they should make targeted offers around selling them beer. Because it looks like when you're expecting a child or whatnot, the husbands want to drink more beer, right? It's uncommon insights like that, right? And then they adjust the offers depending on what's working and what's not working. So this kind of targeted offer with the clear objective got them going from 8 to 14%. Enhanced store loyalty usually is about 1 to 2%, right? So I'm sure some of you guys are already doing this thing. You got to be very targeted at the board level to be able to show results. The next one is an obvious one, obviously, is gather data, right? A lot of data. Got to know your customers. Depending on which business you're in, on the institutional side or the consumer side, the engagement model is very different, right? There are a lot of information that people are capturing about name, age, gender, number of children you have, residential household you have, but there's also a lot of unstructured information that is out there. So Lloyd did mention that maybe we'll talk a little bit in the later end of this section about privacy and whatnot, but there is a lot of unstructured information out there. It is amazing to me how much people share information up in the public domain. We all talk about it, it's a bad idea, Big Brother's watching and whatnot. So how many of you guys have Facebook accounts? I'm just saying, right? How many of you guys have LinkedIn accounts, right? So you opt into that information. You know, some of the banks are present here. They have implemented programs to come up with these offers, but they're collecting all this information and they have an app on their phone, and they're using that to track all this information, but you have to opt into it, right? So you got to know your customers so you can come and make targeted offers. The second thing is about, maybe I'll go with this one, is know your offerings, right? How many of you guys have a product catalog that works? Let me ask it a little differently. If you guys implementing a product master data management solution, because usually most of the banks start with customer with not doing a product MDM solution. I know in the banking world, the products, there's only so many products a person can buy and whatnot, but there's still something to be said about classification, detailed classification of products. So you can actually use it into a rules engine and do some logical offers around it, right? The example I always like is a shoe company. They used to have all these different kinds of shoes of different colors, and they have all these design patterns and paisley and pier and whatnot. And even with the letter P, they would have 40 different types of shoes you can actually buy. So if you don't have a clear MDM solution or classification or a detailed catalog of your products, especially when it goes to investment products, then you don't really know what kind of product the customer bought. And can you actually cross-sell that product, or can you promote that product to similar customers for using your rules engine and offers? It sounds like it's like a simple thing, but when you get into the details, I've found personally that a lot of the top banks don't really have a pretty good and simplified product catalog. They have 4,000 offers and 4,000 products. Every little nuance becomes a product. That's not really a product. So that's the second thing. The third thing is the purchase context, right? I gave an example of expecting mothers and cross-selling on beer to the husbands, right? Depending on where you are and what life events happening, there's a lot of relevancy about making the offer. It's also timeliness, right? If you make an offer, maybe I'll use the Starbucks example. I go to Starbucks, I make an offer, and I know enough about the customer, and I know he's interested in a lot of books, and there's a Barnes & Noble next door. While he's buying his coffee, I can offer him an offer about buying a book close to him. But that offer is not relevant if I make that offer to him 20 minutes later when he's already gone to someone else. And that actually loses your customer engagement significantly. It's just more annoying. So not only you got to understand the events that are happening, but also the timing of this thing is quite important. Okay. So analyze and execute. Obviously, you've done all this stuff. You're going to run analytics on it, right? And this is where the cool advanced analytics, all kinds of different techniques, regression models, self-organizing maps, different example that I've seen very successfully happen in the industry. The right channel, make right offers. I'm going to skip most of this. We already talked a bit about this, but I'll give you a few examples. All right, here's an example about using customer sentiment and also using things like complaints to not only address from a regulatory perspective what the issues are, so you can have evidence to the regulatory bodies that you're below a certain threshold. We all know all the different monitoring that's been happening from CFPB and whatnot. But also taking, for example, in this case, one example would be consumer complaints, right? Not only you're capturing first call resolution or you're capturing information about why the person called, but also capturing things like tone of the voice, speech recognition in terms of certain words. When a person calls in and the word lawyer comes in your speech, or escalation, or I'm going to sue you, those things get captured, right? and they get immediately routed using voice analytics, and also combining that information with your data that you have about the customer to a specialist. So you come up with customer risk scores at the aggregate level. But for companies which have these triggers or queues in place, you can have near real-time queuing and escalation to a specialist at a call level, right? And so that is also taking advanced analytics, using voice analytics and whatnot, to capture this and then not only address the complaint, but then also increase customer engagement, right? The game is about customer engagement. So you solve that problem in a timely manner. Depending on the customer and the different product relationships you have with a customer, it's very different. We all get that. If it's a primary relationship, it's different. If it's a secondary relationship and multiple products with you, it's a little different. But the way you're going to solve some of these things in a timely manner, and the way you're not going to bug your customers, because how many of you guys like to call your bank? Okay, let me ask a different question. How many of your customers don't like to call the bank, right? We don't all like to get bugged by the bank. But instead of making offers, sometimes it's about not making the offers, right? It's about servicing, right? So if I have, well, some of us are a little sophisticated in this manner, but if I have a customer who automatically pays $25 to a particular organization every month, and they go in, call in, or write a check or whatnot, the next time they call, it says, hey, we can solve your problem, but by the way, can I automate this direct deposit to this company with $25 every month for you so you don't have to do it, right? Something to make their life easier, right? And then you're not bugging them at all, and then you learn a bit more about them, whatnot, and at the right time, depending on some life event or whatnot, right? You make the right offer. It's gonna have that feeling like my bank really cares about me, and I'm making the right offers versus getting the next credit card offer so many times. That brings another good point. How many of you guys get credit card offers from the same bank which are different all the time? Okay, right? So I have a fellow partner of mine says, Omer, I keep collecting. I'm not going to name the bank. I'm going to not make friends otherwise today. But I keep collecting over the last year or so every time I get a credit card offer from a particular bank, right? And they're all different. They don't know how much I make. They don't know how many kids do I have. They don't know my debt-to-income ratio. They don't know my loan-to-value stuff around my household. They don't know how many credit cards I have right now, what interest rates I have on my credit cards, and they keep making me these offers and offers and offers, and they keep alienating me, right? And so every bank I go talk to and says, oh yeah, we got the best thing, we make credit card offers, we're doing good and all that, and then I see this in the real world. It makes me think there's a lot to be done even right now, right? I mean, Amazon started making these offers a long time ago. We all know about books and whatnot, but at least it worked, because I remember when I used to buy the Design Patterns book with the Gang of Four, they immediately sent me the Small Talk Companion, which I ended up buying. But there was some relevancy there, the thing worked. We know, the banks know so much about their customers, and sometimes it's amazing to me that we don't make the right offers. Another example is about cross-selling investment products. This is an example we did for a bank in Canada, and trying to understand their wealth attributes, and then cross-selling them investment products or mutual funds, for example, right? So this is a technique using self-organizing maps, using clusters of information about different customers, and using that information to cross-sell a mutual fund. So, I have a friend of mine, makes a lot of money, and he has certain mutual funds he has affinity to, and they seem to be doing pretty good. But can I go and use advanced technique like self-organizing maps to figure out which customers are similar to a friend of mine, right? What is his risk profile in buying certain products? And then trying to cross-sell those products and trying to engage them in a dialogue. Now, most of this stuff is also educational, making the field advisor or the front sales guy or the investment advisor more educated about the products and giving him advice. The human capital thing feeds in. So it's not all about optimization and robots and R2D2. You do the right analytics, use the human capital channel, because in this case, the right offer is about that human being having the right conversation using this advice. It's not popping up on your mobile device, says, hey, you should buy this mutual fund, right? Another example, I really like this one. It was not in banking, it was in pharmaceuticals. And I know there's a lot of skepticism about social and mobile stuff, but this is a place where it worked, so I like to use this example. This is about network infinity. So pharmaceutical companies were looking for, how do I get, when I launch a new drug, adopted pretty quickly in the market, right? And they realized if they target certain doctors, then the adoption of certain of those new drugs will be faster. And what they did was they looked at public information and looked at certain doctors and see which are they connected with Facebook, with other doctors in the network. And they came out, the bigger the circle, the stronger it was, the network was, and you could quickly figure out the network diagram of certain customers and propensity of them to have influence. And they start targeting those doctors about their new drugs, right? And so it successfully launched them the adoption of that particular drug into the market. You can use the same example in the previous example I gave you around investment products, right? We all are influencers in the way we live. I get a call all the time, says, hey, what do you think about this particular investment opportunity and whatnot, right? And I'm really thinking in this banking security terms, the actual investment products we have. We talk about self-organizing maps. You know, if there was a way for my investment advisor to educate me on certain products and I have propensity to buy, I not only buy myself those products, but I probably would have an influence on people around me, depending on my network. And so there is something to be said about using that kind of data and influencing your customers or targeting your customers who are major influencers in the ecosystem, right? This is an example of that could work in banking securities. So finally, learn and evolve, right? And obviously things would work. You know, we all think we got the smartest mind and we'll make things happen. Sometimes things don't work. It's uncommon insights. We've all read about Freakonomics or Super Freakonomics. Those books are excellent. But they're also about evolving analytical models and testing them offers. This is nothing new that I'm going to tell you guys. And we certainly suggest that as well. Okay. So the last thing I would say is what's next, right? So this is the legal, ethical, and regulatory issues, right? But what people, one is there's a lot of data out there which is not in your four walls. So I've been engaged in a lot of conversation about as simple as things like data governance models around unstructured data, which is outside your four walls, and what are the data policies you need to put in place to kind of protect your institutions. A lot of opt-in programs are being established, so customers obviously opt in to share that information. And then the level of analytical amount of, the level at which you can go down to at the individual customer level or an aggregate level without becoming an issue, right? Fair lending kind of things. And so there's still, you can still do cross-analytical models and cross-sell offers at an aggregate level, like those clusters of segmentation I was talking about, versus even not getting into any kind of regulatory issues and targeting specific customers when it's not a fair game. All the things I talked about, it's still very applicable. You got to play by the rules. Start getting basic demographics. We talked all about get going your MBO strategy. I'm sure most of you guys already have it. And maybe some of these things helped you think about a few things. And obviously, if you're in a game, if you don't do anything, you'll be left behind. It's a very dog-eat-dog market out there now. There's only so many deposits and so many banks, and everybody's going to get very aggressive about it if they're already not. And if you don't do it, you'll fall behind. No doubt about it. And that's all I got. So happy to answer any questions. I got the former CEO here, so he can answer all your questions. So one, I want to say, I'm not about a proponent about a call center I think, disagree with your first statement. It's not about making the offer when somebody calls the call center.
No, I know. I'm just saying
right.
That's an opportunity to leverage.
There's opportunity to leverage from a channel perspective, right? There are companies out there and I'm not also a big fan of ads popping up, right? But there's companies out there that they do digital touch points on your sites. And a lot of the top 2 or 3 banks actually use that. There are the companies like X+1 or Global Omniture. They actually look at the way you're clicking on different websites. And on your site, depending on your context, and let's say I'm looking for a vacation, I'm looking for travel and whatnot, they'll start giving you offers on certain pieces of the page using the weblogs. And using that context to say, think this is a better offer package vacation kind of product if you bought it through the Chase credit card or whatnot, something like that. But it's a very real thing that people are actually happening. So X+1 is one example. Omniture is another example, using web tagging and weblogs to actually promote that on your site versus different ads popping up so you have more control over it. And so you can actually configure all that in your own environment versus, to your other point, not having control over it. So you can have control over it.
On your site, but what happens? How do you
Well, you can't target people if you can't get to them, right? And this is about using different kind of channels. If the mobile device is one way to get to it, because a lot of people are getting, the adoption of the mobile device is huge now on the different population. If they're not getting on the website, then you can't. And then you have to figure out creative ways of human interaction, if it's possible or not. But if you can't get them, then you can't make an offer.
I'm not sure if your question was about general advertising, or was it more about specific targeted offerings? So,
how to take what you're saying and apply it to traditional advertising, which online has become.
So I'll play my example. My Starbucks, I think we're exhausted. But, you know, when I downloaded the Starbucks app and was asked to register my credit card, why didn't I get a pop-up or something on my screen that said, you know, and, you know, if I'm, you know, Barclays or Chase or American Express or whomever, I'd pay for this to say, you know, if you register with your American Express card, get free coffee for a month or whatever. You know, the cost of that acquisition or the cost of solidifying that you know, relationship and that share of spend is enormous. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I'd like to see. I mean, you know, at Barclays, you know, we issued the U.S. Airways Dividend Miles MasterCard, and you know, if you were online booking a trip at usairways.com, and we knew that you didn't have the card, you know, when you get to the payment page, we'd send a pop-up screen that said, "Hey, apply for the U.S. Airways Dividend MasterCard from Barclays, and you know, get additional 20,000 points on your first trip." I mean, but that's all about the relevancy at the right time, in the right moment, the right channel. That's a, you know, a perfect example of next best offer. The key is, you know, we did that 5 years ago. Or longer. The key is now that there are so many more channels to be able to affect that. You're exactly right. I mean, you know, the data shows that people are not clicking on random ads that have no meaning or no relevance. So to me, it is all about the targeting and the relevancy, and that's where, you know, the efficiency of marketing dollars really is optimized. The one thing that you know, I'd want to leave you with, and I suppose most of you work in a IT function in the various companies that you work with or are in an IT business, is that, you know, here's the big breakthrough time where, you know, so-called support functions, if you will, although take this in the right light, you know, can really have an amazing impact on the business. And it's not just about, you know, taking orders from the business side. It's the IT organization being the business side, and, you know, exposing the power of big data and the analytics and the understanding of, you know, how that predictive capability can have an impact on the business. Here's, in my opinion, you know, the major breakthrough time and an inflection point where the IT organizations are going to be the go-to organization within an existing business. You know, in the past, it's always been marketing and sales, marketing and sales. You know, that's where all the glory was. That's where all the awards were. That's where the you know, chairman's trips for the best employees, you know, for the best salespeople, and they went, you know, sailing to all these great islands and whatnot. Now is the time for IT, and, you know, I would, you know, encourage all of you just to sort of take that opportunity and run with it.